Hey guys, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We got a great fishing report lined up for you guys this week, but first let's hear who's making the show possible. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. Listen up, folks. AFTCO has a new promotion for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. I especially enjoy their hooded sun protection shirts, as well as their Seiko fluorocarbon. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. Again, just text the letters LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, y'all, welcome to the show this week. Thank God this weather has kind of changed a little bit. There's been some fishing happening, and in case you don't follow him already, Captain Bill Pappas Jr. aboard Plain Hooky Charters, always out there doing something. So excited to have you back on the show, man. Welcome back. How you been, brother?
Good, Luke. How have you been, bud?
I'm fantastic, man. It's good to just see that we got some fishable weather, and I've been watching you guys, and y'all have just been laying the smack down. Like whatever the weather is permitting, you've been getting out and doing. I'm looking at your page right now. I see some cobias. I see some red drum. I see lots of mahi. I see some sea bass. So talk me through what you guys have been doing this past week, what you've been catching, what you've been seeing.
Oh, man, just like you said, the weather's been a little bit rough trying to get out there. And you have charters booked that move around because of the weather. And fortunately, a lot of our charters just rescheduled their trips, and we've been filling up pretty well. So we went out there with a couple guys the other day, and we ended up looking for some mahi in the inshore area, but the waves and everything was so rough from the last couple of days before that had everything stirred up pretty crazy, and the water visibility wasn't what we wanted. So we moved back inshore and did a bunch of sea bass fishing with the group, and they had a great time catching some real big sea bass and loaded the box full of what they could in sea bass, and had a couple flounder bites that didn't come tight. It's not like we were set up for fishing for flounder, but there was a few bites still out there on those wrecks for some flounder. I'm sure they're out there. And then we came inshore and tried for some more flounder, and the inshore wrecks busted off a few rigs on some well-known ones that should have had some fish on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of them people that once it's been stirred up and you have enough rain that washes through the Chesapeake Bay and it filters out so many days in a row, it makes the water clarity even out all the way to the tower in that area. Even, for example, you'll have some milky water, and you won't have you had. You can just tell by reeling up your rod, and you'll see your bait, how far the visibility is. You're like, man, I can only see my bait from 5 feet away. When 3 days ago, before the storm, you could see your bait 20, 30 feet down. And that works the same way on the bottom. The fish can see 20, 30 feet away and think about going for your bait. And on tighter days, when the visibility is terrible, it literally has to smack them in the face to get them.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So, yeah, it's a philosophy. You just got to run through in your head. What you're seeing is what they're seeing, as far as you can see, as far as they can see. And it works the same way for togging. If you remember that in the winter, it helps out. But anyway, we instead of heading back in, I asked the guy, I looked over to him, I said, how many cobias, because I know they're from Vermont, and I was like, how many cobias he caught this season? He said he hadn't caught any. I said, well, I figured that. Let's go over to the buoy. So we ran to some buoys, and the first buoy right off the bat had, I'll give you a cool little story here for the podcast. I was telling my mate up top, you go through a long season, you're up there, you get some time to talk going and rolling up to a buoy, and you trade philosophies from time to time. And I leaned over to him and I had one for him. And I said, hey, man, look, I said, you know what? We can do anything, man. I just want you to know that we can do anything that we try. And I was like, and he's like, all right. And I said, and on the opposite end of that, though, I say, we're never going to be able to do anything that we don't try.
Yeah.
And we got up to the buoy, and I threw a blind shot. There was no fish to be seen. It looked like I've maybe seen it, but it was so overcast and so, moving around a whole bunch. You just throw a shot. Nothing came tight, and I inspired him. I felt to throw a shot anyway. He's not really a blind shot. He likes to see where he's shooting, and I got him to come over to the optimistic side of you got to try. Yeah. So he throws the shot out, gives it 3-4 pumps, and bam, he's on.
Oh.
We
That's awesome.
hand it down below. They're stoked. I gunned the boat around the buoy to get it straight, and three more whale cobias come up with it.
Oh,
So we're like, oh, this is awesome. It was two more. I mean, it was a pack of three total. So I
hmm
go look and I'm like, all right, we lead one over. We're trying to get the other, of course, trying to hook up a couple more. And it becomes where that balance becomes. And every captain who's been out there, and even charter fishermen or charter guys or recreational guys know the same thing. The balance becomes whether do I get this cobia in the boat because we need it really bad, or do I try to get the other one? And you got to balance that because you need that cobia, but you still want to get that second one for the adrenaline rush and get the other. Everybody's hooked up and 2 on 3 on. But sometimes you got to just draw the line and cut off and say, all right, that's it. And then you get the fish in the boat because it's more important. But
Yep.
this particular day, we had been scheduled for an offshore trip. And we didn't have our big cobia net with us at all. We weren't even supposed to be going cobia fishing. But when you fish, you just have everything ready and you don't really have a plan. I call it hook it and figure it out later. So when we get this fish to the side of the boat, it looked just on the line of a keeper. I couldn't tell, but it's the season, of course, closed. So he reaches over and I say, Russ, he's trying to, he's what it is. I was like, grab him by the jig. Just yoke him in by the jig. He grabs him by the jig and yokes him right in, man, pulls him in the boat. We're like, yeah, it's like a 38, 39, 39 fish. We're like, they're stoked. He's pumped. He's holding his first cobia in the year, He's having a great time. He's pumped, There's only one other guy, and he's not feeling it really because, he's in the beanbag, if you get what I'm saying.
hmm
So we could have kept going or quit. And I was like, you know what? Now we're going to keep going. So we went to a couple more buoys, and we went to one more set, and then there they were. It was another pair, nice, big old fat pair. And we're going across them. So I backhand left it over to the buoy, two pump it, and boom, we were on. We get this sucker on, hand it down. It's a beast, man. It has a belly on it. It's moving and grooving. This guy's having a blast. This thing's jumping out of the water, tail walking and stuff. It's a good time. And then I'm like, all right, we can get him in. I'm like, grab him by the jig, Russ. So Russ goes down to grab this thing by the jig, and the fish just starts alligator rolling. Now, I've seen an alligator roll here and there, time to time. I guess an eel will do it, or a certain other fish. Just I can't even remember. A shark will do it. Okay,
Yep.
a shark alligator roll on you. But I've never seen a cobia do it. And it alligator rolled so much, and eventually our angler, won't name names, but angler raised to help, and kapow, shattered the rod into like 4 pieces.
Oh no.
So the fish is still on. Rod pieces all the way slid down to the fish. He reaches over. I'm like, get him in by the jig, man. Do it. He's sliding. He's alligator rolling, getting all hemmed up, and he grabs him by the jig. It looks like he's about to pull him in, and the fish comes and just goes back in the water. Poosh. I'm like, what? He's like, and then he starts alligator rolling. I'm like, are you still here? Yeah. And I just get the urge. I'm like, all right, I gotta show him what to do here. I run down the ladder, man. I go, all right, I'm going what to do. I get down there and it is chaos. That thing is alligator rolling like I've never seen it.
Broken rod.
There's broken rod pieces everywhere. I'm still sorting through the rod to get to the jig. I'm pulling my way down and leadering the fish over to stop him from freaking out. I finally grab the jig and I'm like, yeah, I got this. I grab him by the jig, and as soon as I yoke about halfway out of the water, I got him. But the weight of that fish started to kick in. You can only physically pinch so hard on a piece of lead and pull with that much weight. I didn't realize it until that point. So as soon as it slid down, I was like, all right, Russ, you're right. And then I look over and I go, and I was like, you know what? This is the point we're getting this cobia anyway, because one guy's not feeling well, the other one was, and one guy wanted to go, but the other way, he was still staying out for his buddy. And I knew that if we got this fish in the boat, I could save one of my best buddies over there who booked the trip, and his buddy would get the cobia. So I look over at the cobia, and I'm like, all right, here comes. I grab the jig with one hand, and I just look at his face, like, bring it on, suck on. I throw my thumb right in his face and yoke him in the jig in the boat all at the same time. And they all, boom, as soon as it comes over the rail, the jig pops out of his face. And it hits the bottom, boom. And I mean, of course, he scuffed me up real good, took my thumb out with it like a catfish. But I was like, I would have scuffed up all 4 fingers, buddy. We high five, woo, got him. And I was like, yeah, and all that for some pics, and let him go.
Sacrifice the thumb. I mean,
yeah, it was a nice one, man. It was like a 47-inch or 48-inch. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, it was a big fish though. It was a nice fat one. Nice plump one.
Especially cool on a jig. And I mean, that's kind of I appreciate the fact that you guys are, throwing jigs here, after the season. That way there's no chance of, getting cut hooked or dying or anything like that. So it keeps it a true sport. And I love the analogy of, hey, we're going to, try it or don't try it. And if we don't try it, we're not going to be successful. And then boom, to show them that and then to come tight. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. That was cool, man. That was definitely cool for the Cobes. And then the next day, I guess we went out and we had a group booked. And they wanted to do a fishing trip with some kids, and they were, younger kids. And I was like, you know what? Just to start the day off, I had a hunch, and I slid in the bay for some drum action, and we set up. And right off the bat, I mean, not within a few minutes, we were already hooking them up, and they were just big, gigantic bulls. And I mean, you see a lot of them throughout the year in the season, and these ones this time of year are just really, really big. You'll get some other ones mixed in with there. You'll see some, 36, 32. Everyone's on the charters like, oh, come on. They're just trying to be a shorter fish. Nobody ever cheers for a smaller fish, but they were like, come on, be smaller than, be 26. And they're 28 and 30s. And can we cut the lips off? And, you never hear it all. But anyway,
Yeah.
there was some fishing out there. There's some bluefish in the mix too. We were using them and chopping them. And we were also catching them on the top water. That was pretty dang fun, man. Around the area and around the islands, there's some bluefish. If you throw in them the shallow jigs with some either leader or some well, wire leader, but you can use 50 to 80, something thick. And you might decrease bites, but you'll increase your chance of getting your $10 lure back.
Right,
So we're
right.
doing that. It was pretty fun for fishing. Set up again the next day and blasted them with this couple that was having a great time, man. It was just awesome, man. It was a really good time out there. Had some really good bites. The fishing really improved. It was for bottom fishing for the drum. I got to admit, it was some of the best we've seen. So it's gonna be that time.
I'm looking at a bunch of your pictures, and something that stands out to me, obviously, yes, they are all huge drum. I mean, those are some of the bigger class of drum that I've seen. I see that there's a couple smalls mixed in, but nothing in that slot size that you can keep, obviously. But one thing I notice about all of them, I'm curious if you got any insights on it. Almost every single one of the large ones seems to have like a bunch of like reddish, almost like their tips of their tails seem beat up. Is that something? What do you think is causing that?
I think here's what I'm thinking, and then this is from a video from I think it was Southern Reels or somebody fishing one of the man. It's a cool charter boat that we see from time to time out there. But they posted a video and it had the fish on the bottom. And honestly, besides that video of showing them there, you can predict they're on the bottom a lot eating these baits. But I figure they're down in the rocks. All right, so imagine they're down there in the rocks, really tight in the rocks, and they finally do see something they want to eat. And they're around. You're around 20 of your homies, like a chick at a bar, man. You 20 homies and one chick, they're gonna run, dude. And when they're running, some legs are gonna get broken. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think they're because if you notice, it's always the bottom fin, the very bottom one, not the top much.
Yeah.
But I think they're digging into the ground, getting moving, and they're scuffing themselves for that food. And it could be breeding.
Yeah.
It could be dropping some seed there and scooting around to get on it. But I would think it'd be more to food because you put some food in front of those fish, and you know how the red drum act.
They're so aggressive. Yeah.
Mullet, they're chewing the mullet and the bunker and the bluefish, but everyone would know that. It was some good bait out there, fresh. I'd be fresh as you can, but you're not going to see much menhaden on the surface to get with a cast net out in the ocean anymore. We haven't seen any in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've heard of any bait being talked about, but that's a great thought about what's causing those tails to look like that. And you don't see that as much earlier in the season. It's probably because there's a little bit more bait present. Maybe they're getting in on those, bunker and whatnot. But at any rate, that's really exciting. And then back to what you said earlier about, looking at your bait in the water and you're only seeing it 5 or 6 feet down versus when it's much clearer, you can see, 20 to 30 feet down. In terms of like changing your strategy to be successful on those mahi or on those, sea bass on the wrecks, or even if you're potentially trying to target flounder, what things are you doing differently when that visibility is decreased like that to try to improve the odds of getting hooked up?
All right. Well, that's important you ask that because, for some species, it's going to matter where you are, you're drifting. You got to you just got to lose your system for your, like say you're looking at your chart and you did a flounder drift and you go over to the left 10 feet and do that drift. And you go over to the left 10 more feet and do that drift. You're making a comb pattern on your machine. So you can use technology to run over the areas and know you're covering more ground. So you're not sitting in the same spot. And that's, without all the fancy stuff, it's just using a chart. And you can make some comb patterns and do different drifts. And if you find out a drift is successful or some drifts are better for not snagging than others, then use those. That's a good way of doing it. I know that. What was the original question again?
Just, some of the things that you're changing.
All right, I lost my train of thought. Okay, here it's tautog. Another one is tautog. If you know the visibility is bad and you're sitting in one spot dropping for tog and you're waiting for them to come by, there's certain times of year the tog aren't moving. They're just sitting in their hole and you got to work your way to them. And there's certain times of year where they're moving around the wrecks. And most times the ones that are moving around are going to be like, 15 to 18. You're not going to find your big giants. They're cruising the wreck and looking for food. They're sitting in their hole they've lived in for years and been protected by.
That's
so
pretty cool.
You got to move that boat around. You got to pick different spots. I mean, it's not really, I'm sure it's not that difficult with spot lock and a chip and a card compared to what it was. compared to what it was when you had to, have numbers or get numbers or even find numbers or go for ghost numbers and throw a hook and try to find pieces where the hook actually stayed and then find actually pieces where the hook would stay and you could be on grounds. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's changed. So I'm sure it's a lot easier now to just click a couple buttons, but there's some techniques, and those guys out there doing that, I'm sure are good. And they use their same technology and techniques to find the best spot on the wreck that has the best bites. And then just put marks in their machine to tell them, hey, I did well there, and I'm going to try that spot again. Not as easy on the drift, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Or as easy on an anchor where you're swinging around a bunch. And there's ways up north that they love the double anchor system where you can just move all around the wreck and hook it here and do there and stuff like that. But not a lot of us do that down here.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm hearing a lot of things that make a lot of sense to me. And one of the things I'm hearing, just like as a holistic thought, is you just kind of got to be a little bit more dialed in and pay a little bit more attention to what you're doing and be a little bit more intentional about some of the things that you're doing. It's not necessarily going to be just get to the wreck and do a drift and you're going to probably run over some stuff. You got to be a little bit more specific in the things you're doing. And then in terms of your bait, your tackle setup, are you using kind of the same things or do you make any changes there?
Well, on days that the visibility is really bad and the bite's really slow for the tog, you can go from a single to a double rig. You know what I mean? Put more bait out there so you have more chances, and you can also do that for beginners that give them a second chance if they miss the first bite. But yeah, it's just like you said, man. When that weather's bad and the visibility is bad, you can think. Obviously, all our fishermen are optimistic. We think they're going to bite in the rain. We think they're going to bite when it's done raining. I think they're going to bite in the wind. I think it's going to be done. They're going to bite when they're done. For you, ask me any day, I'm going to say they're going to be biting because that's optimism for you.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is some days they're not,
No, that makes perfect sense.
But you just, as long as you're thinking and you're thinking what they're thinking or trying to see what they're seeing, then you're going to have a better chance of making your moves better to what's going on. There's lucky fishing, and then you can set out catfish lines and stare at catfish, and that's fun, and it's luck. There's some luck involved in some spots that are working great. On boats, there's these guys that are great. Adam Cook and them are unreal at what they do. So there's ways in it, but there's also just fishing and being lucky.
Right.
If you want to increase your chances, you got to be thinking about what's going on and make more moves in consideration of that. And sometimes going deeper is going to help you, to be honest. If you're fishing the ocean, for us, you just go out deeper, man. It could rain for a week straight, but if you go out 40 miles, it's going to filter a lot of that water down, that fresh water and all that mud and stuff. It's not going to be as far out there. You'll get some blue water and some good stuff. And all the way out in the deep, of course, in the canyons, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask two more things. One is going to be about flounder. So this time of year, here we are kind of late September. You mentioned, you weren't really set up for the flounders, but you saw a couple, or had a couple of flounder bites. If we're wanting to target flounder right now, is that something that we can really think about doing, or is that going to be not as productive as maybe the sea bass or the tautog?
The sea bass is starting to turn on real good. They're going to start turning on more and more as it gets colder. And I'm sure there's guys that are still catching the flounder real good if you flounder fish all summer, hopefully you're going to catch some fish if they're still there. You're still dialed in. I mean, the cobia guys, if any cobia swims by their boat after being dialed in all summer, it doesn't stand a chance. They're still going to, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Hey, and I just to be honest, if another mahi swims by my boat, they're in trouble.
Forget about it. Yeah.
Started at 403 mahis this season.
Wow.
Yeah, we had about 5 boat limits too. That was the last thing I was going to tell you too, is that last trip of the season. The last trip the other day was real fun, man. A lot of big mahi. They're getting real big. A lot of gaffers. We gaff a certain size fish. We get a lot of questions though. I got to tell you this. A lot of questions are, why do you gaff the bailers and stuff? And there's actually a couple good reasons for that. The second reason is nowhere near as important as the first. The first reason we gaff the bigger ones from us is up top. It looks like they're smaller, but in actuality, when we're looking at these fish compared to the other size fish, we have a certain size that we just swing in the boat. And we're using light leader, light tackle, braided line. It won't break usually. But when it comes to these fish and the size and their capacity of their face and losing them over the side, a certain size, if you're catching, over, 500, 600 a year, and even commercial fishing for them, we gaff the bigger ones to make sure they get in the boat. That's the main thing. And you got customers that see their big fish. They want to see it flop off and bang into the boat and miss. No, so we gaff at a certain size. And the other way of looking at it is, if you're on a charter and there's a bigger fish, you want to make sure that's in the boat. And down there, it's like the biggest fish of the day usually gets the hook, and it's just, so we're never putting it on there for that. We're never just putting it, let's just gaff them for fun, because gaffing them is not something easy to do with smaller fish.
No.
They freak out. And a lot of times the bigger fish, it's tough because you got people trying to pull it as you're gaffing it. So right when you pull it, it's like a Houdini. You go for your shot and they yoke it at the same time. It's like,
yeah,
thought you had it.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And for me, I like watching it. I like watching them. I tell them pull the hook out for certain ones, and it's just how it goes, man. It's no worries. Once they see the dock shot, most times, if they see the story and they're like, oh no, gaffed. When they see the dock shot, those fish are a lot bigger on the dock than they are in the from
Oh
20 feet,
yeah. I
20
mean,
feet up down.
you make a good point about the mahi. They do tend to look smaller just because, from a vertical perspective, they're not a super wide fish. So you never get a visual image
Oh,
looking down as this, oh, there's a big fish. But like once you get broadside and you see horizontally how long the fish is, then you get
yeah.
a better understanding of how big it is. And I definitely agree with you on the gaffing because I personally have, lost several mahi boat side. And then you mentioned the light leader, the light tackle. Sometimes those mahi are strange to bite, and you do have to really back it down. And so if you're on, I mean, what would you say some of the lighter tackle that you'll use for them in terms of your leader material?
We're probably using, I think, 40, 50, and 60. I don't mean we tie that into our braided, and
Yeah,
we got those. And another thing is you got to imagine if you're catching your limit, you're catching 50 fish, you're catching using 5 rods. That's 10 fish each. You
right.
think every single fish, the line, the leader, all that stuff.
It wears, and
God,
yeah.
man, every single fish is on these small rods are ripping the line out and peeling them out. Max capacity, just have. I mean, it's a great
Yeah.
day. People love it though. They love that mahi fishing. I love it. I see tacos in my just swimming around when I'm fishing with these
I
people.
think every other day over the past 2 weeks that I've looked at your story past 4 p.m., I see, tahi makos being made, and I'm like, there he
Oh,
goes again with more tahi makos.
are we having them tomorrow? What's up? I'll make them when we get done tomorrow.
I think we should.
Are you?
So
Well, unless you're definitely there. I was like, yo, I'm gonna tell you. Let's get some talk. I'm gonna make them up for it. But tomorrow is the day, by the way.
yeah, tomorrow is the day. We've been
I
talking
take.
about this all season. It's like
Uh,
we're gonna go play some golf. We're gonna get off the water and play some golf. So tomorrow's the day that we go mano y mano. And how about we just make a little friendly wager? Loser makes the other guy tahi makos.
oh, losing wrong. Well, you're giving me strokes. So all right, man. I'd rather have my Tally Marcos for it, to be honest. But
That
nah,
sounds like a good deal.
we'll do a loser can buy the beers or buy the lunch or something. But
There it
I'll
is.
hey, Mahi tacos, hey, Tahi Macos on the house, man, on the
Oh
house.
yeah.
Yeah, we got that.
Absolutely. And if you're curious about the tahi makos, just go back through the recent episodes when Captain Bill's been on. He shares the recipe. It's phenomenal.
Do you know which episode that is? I literally give that recipe out and I tell people to go to the podcast probably maybe 5 to 10 times a week for that recipe. And there's been a lot of people going back to listen to that exact one, man. I'm curious to know which one it is too. It was like I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I got it. Maybe they have episode numbers or something I can send them to.
Captain Bill and I just had to go into the archives and find it because it's that special of a recipe. So if you guys go back to episode 9, which is the week of July 1st through 7th, so over the 4th of July holiday week, we talked about, some mahi fishing and we dialed into the tahi mako recipe. So there's been some weeks since then. Is the recipe still like pristine 5 stars as it is, or have you made any adjustments to it?
We moved it up to a 5.1. I did one more last little move where I smashed them down with the spatula at the end, like a little French toast, and makes just flatten them just a tiny bit, just for that crunchability.
And then just get a little brown. I've seen you like
They get
brown
like
them
a little
just a little
snap to
bit.
it. They get like a little snap to it when
Mm,
you buy them. Like man, oh yeah, they're good, man. Oh, you'll know. I'll show you tomorrow.
that's awesome.
I'll show
I'm
you tomorrow.
excited to try them in person because I know that they are world famous. They're going to be in the 2020 cookbook, right?
Still in the 2020 cookbook coming out in 2020.
Hey, you
Just,
know what?
you know what's funny? I actually, it's in my plans to do it over the winter this winter. I want to get at least one out. I mean, I gotta have a couple different, recipe books after, adding more, and making more. But I've got some I gotta share already, man. I've been saving them for my thing, and it's just like, I gotta just get them out. So
Well,
I should have looking to take some time off to do that.
yeah, and one of the reasons I think that, guys like yourself that harvest a regular species, you get a lot of chances to perfect a recipe, whereas maybe the average Joe that, goes to the Whole Foods or whatever to grab some salmon or some this out of the other, they're not getting to practice with the same ingredient over and over and over again. Whereas for example, the sea bass, the mahi, you're dealing with that ingredient on a very regular basis. So you have the opportunity to try things over and over again until you perfect it and you're like, okay, this is the 5.1 star recipe.
You got it, man. And it works. I guess the guests can do that too. If they get a big bag of sea bass, they can, and they get tired of eating it the same way. They can mix up the different ways but that's what it comes down to is like, you want to try something different and sometimes you fail. Like I tried mixing, like changing the ingredients on the Talimacos once or the
Hmm.
seasoning. It
Wasn't the
failed.
same.
I added bacon to it recently just to be like, let me try little bacon bits in it. It
Doesn't
ruined
work.
it. It ruined it.
Uh,
I was like, it was good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a bacon Talimaco, but it wasn't the original, just that killer and the way it spices and kicks and with that seasoning and stuff. It just works, man. So I don't know. Sometimes you don't change too much. That's if it's a good thing.
yeah. Well, speaking of, things changing and some things change for the better. One of those things right now is the season, the temperature. So you guys are fishing that beautiful 29-foot Seahawk that's custom built to perform whether you're, near shore or offshore. And, will this be the first or second season that you have it into the colder temperatures?
This is gonna be our second season, but I don't think we did the curtains until November last year. I,
Okay.
I don't believe we did. We have now. We're gonna have now we got the four-sided curtains all from over the season, so we'll be able to put them on as right in the middle of October during the swordfish and mahi season. We'll be able to put those on for those long rides. We've got the sides on still, so right now we still even just having the sides on. It's really convenient riding in
Oh
any
yeah.
just because the people can decide in the morning to have them down and then put them back up in the afternoon. And on the ride in, they like them up just so they can catch that fresh air and get that salt spray.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, around here, Virginia Beach, we get into that season where it's like winter in the morning, spring in the mid morning, summer in the afternoon, and then fall in the evening. And so those rides out can be rather chilly. But then once you're not running and the temperature's risen up again a little bit, it's really nice and comfortable. So for those that are listening that want to hop on playing hooky and get to experience having some fun, along with Captain Bill, you're going to have a comfortable ride, regardless of the temperatures. And for those that are listening in and are like, hey, it's time. I want to get on those mahi. I want to get on those tautog or those sea bass. What's the best way for them to contact you and get booked on playing hooky charters?
They can call me up at 757-619-3530. They can also the main way we do all our booking is on the website at playinhookeycharters.com, and that's PLAYINHOOKEY charters CHARTERS, and that's .com. And it'll pull up the trips that we have available. It'll also give you the calendar once you pull up a trip. It'll let what the times are and the availability on that date. You just put a small deposit in and get yourself booked for a trip. If we don't end up going for your trip or 3 days out, you can cancel and get your refund, no problem. If any inside of there, we'll refund your money or reschedule you if the weather gets bad. And we never keep deposits usually unless somebody doesn't show up, but that rarely happens. So yeah, we're gonna definitely be running. We're gonna be definitely running here in the mahi. You got about 3 more weeks for the mahi.
Mm-hmm.
You got about That's will be going all the way to December. The cobia, if somebody really wants to, they can do catch and release cobia trips. We're also right now inshore. We're fishing for the red drum. They're stacked up, so we're going to be doing some inshore walk-ons, and we're going to be opening up some evening walk-on trips coming up soon.
Nice.
So, ready for that? Some after workers, and we're going to get out there. Yeah, man, we got some
Catch
lights
some of
we're
those
built
big
for the night.
drum.
We're built for. Yeah, man. Everyone, everyone's got to work. It's how it works. I didn't get here by not working, so I know the deal. I couldn't fish all the time either back in the day, or I had to fish at night when I got off work. Actually, that's exactly what I did. Every single day I got off work, I went straight to the bridge, right to left the bridge. I'd drag my cart and my dog, and we'd go full blast.
That's
But
awesome,
anyway,
man.
yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Still time to get out there. Time to get out, guys. Get booked and get hooked.
Absolutely. Well, you guys heard Captain Bill. If you want to get on there, you can give him a call or go to the website and get booked. Captain Bill, thanks for that great report. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors, keeping the show free for you each week, and we'll be back with you real soon. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys. Well, welcome to this next segment this week. I'm excited to dive into a very unique and cool conversation. Some new folks that we're going to have on the show talking about something that we've never talked about on the show before. I guess in the fishing world, we might call this observing Bigfoot or a unicorn, shall we say. But these are some friends who are hardcore fishermen and women. I'd like to welcome to the show Dave and Shauna Gill, husband-wife dynamic duo. How you guys doing tonight?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm great. I've seen you guys on social media. I've seen you guys on the water, and I think I speak for a lot of folks. It's like, do you guys even work, or do you just fish all the time?
Yeah, full-time jobs, but a little addicted to cobia fishing. So it's been a good 5 years. We've only been doing the cobia thing for 5 years, but it's nonstop as much as we can get out.
Well, and just to kind of introduce you guys to the listeners, tell us a little bit about like where you guys fish out of, just to kind of give us a glimpse of just how passionate you are about cobia fishing, because we see you down here in the Lower Chesapeake Bay all the time, but it's not like you're just coming out of your backyard to go fishing. Where are you guys out of when you go fishing?
Yeah, so we live up by Annapolis, little town called Shadyside. So we fish primarily. I mean, now that we fish for cobia, we rock fish from October to all the way through catch and release season till about May, and then we drag the boat south. We have property down by Cape Charles, and then we start hitting the reds and then cobia, and just basically do that all summer long.
That's
As
awesome.
much as we can, weekends, holidays, vacation. We vacation there, so it's pretty good.
That's awesome. And Shauna, are you the captain and Dave's the first mate, or how's the dynamic work there on the boat?
No, I'm the mate. I like to stick to the mate. I prefer that.
I imagine you guys spending that much time working together. I'm sure there's no argument that hasn't been settled out on the water.
It's just part of the game. She likes being the mate because she gets first cast every time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I get the good shot.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
wisdom. That's
I
wisdom.
leave him with the stressful handling the boat and doing all this. I'm okay just hanging out and taking the first shot.
Yeah, catching the fish. She didn't want to say it, but she's okay with catching the fish.
That's awesome. I can see the excitement on y'all's faces. I think it's cool, for those listening, like how rare and how cool that you happen to find your forever person who also then just wants to get out there and go fishing with you all the time. So it's not like you have to go texting all your buddies every weekend to find the available person. It's honey, we are going fishing. And there you go. So talk us through the boat that you guys are running now. I know you've run a 24-foot, and I think what was a 22 before that, and now you've graduated and are running what?
So we have a 2021 or Canyon Bay 28H hybrid type bay boat.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much custom built in Florida. It's Kevlar and carbon fiber. So it's 28 with a single 400 on the back. Have a lot of good friends that helped us as far as, it's all equipped with Humminbird. So, side scan, all that kind of good stuff. So Kevin and Nick have helped us with that. And then the nice thing about it is I'm really tall, Sean is really short. So we got to custom build the tower and things like that with it. So we went down, worked with them, Quality T-Tops built the tower up for it. But if we would have stayed, with an off-the-shelf boat, my head would be hitting the tower. So we get to custom build it, things like that. So, we run the crap out of it. We just went over 1,200 hours on it.
Wow.
So it's 3 years old. So roughly 400 hours a year we're putting on. And we run it. It likes to cruise at 40, whether it's, flat or if it's 3-footers, real 3-footers, not internet 3-footers. But, it likes to run, get on top because it's light. So, yeah, we run the crap out of it.
Shauna, how do you feel when the boat, quote, likes to run at 40 and 3-footers? How's that for you?
It's actually a lot smoother at that, at that speed, to be totally honest. He has a lead foot on all things. He's a fast driver. He's a very impatient person, so it works out well for us when it comes to fishing, especially cobia fishing. You gotta be instinctive. So, but this is being recorded, so now this is all going to be used against me, right?
I think there's a lot of wisdom and truth in what you said.
And your lead foot are excellent for our fishing addiction.
A lack of patience and a lead foot are like the perfect combination for a cobia fisherman, because you gotta be on the move, and you really are like constantly looking for the next thing to capture your attention.
Like last Sunday or Saturday, like it was, we went out Saturday and it was tough fishing. We did 94 miles, caught one fish. But out to Cape Henry, all the way to Cape Charles, back to the tunnel, back to Cape Charles, back to the tunnel.
Gosh, that's some mileage, So a couple of things that I love about you guys as a team, right? So the Gill team, I'm just going to call you guys the Gill team. You fish a very unique boat. It's custom built for, your Dikembe Mutombo and whatever height you are, Shauna, diversity in terms of your height. Yeah, spud web, there it is. And then additionally, when it comes to your fishing, you guys are very kind of like, I would call them like purists, right? So you guys traditionally fish artificial only for the cobias. Is that true as well?
For everything.
Yeah, pretty much for everything.
What you're looking for is stubborn and stupid.
Yes.
I mean, with rockfish, it's easy. I mean, that's what we do. But, with cobia, I think the first year and a half, 2 years, we threw, eels and whatever, like everybody else. But where it's just the two of us now, yeah, we've been throwing, unless we have somebody with us. I think last year we had one weekend where we had some friends come. We had bait, we had eels. And then recently we had some friends. We had some eels with us and some bunker or Manhattan, whatever you want to call them. But yeah,
Pogies.
Usually not. Yeah, pogies. Yeah, our friends in Louisiana, pogies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah, very rarely do we have, we'll take the boat, New Jersey, rock fishing, stuff like that. We've had the boat in Florida a few times too. There. So yeah, when we built it, we had a big fishing trip with a bunch of friends.
So traditionally, we're out there with just artificials trying to trick a fish into biting. So I want to kind of just cut to the chase of what happened recently, kind of the reason that we're here. So we opened up by talking about finding, seeing Sasquatch or finding a unicorn. So I think it was September 6th. Is that correct? Or is that just the date that we posted?
That's just the date that we posted.
Okay. So we won't even go to the specific date.
Yeah.
But I want to set the stage for the listeners. So I have an uncle who's one of the owners and operators of one of the podcast sponsors, Sam Russ Seafood, and he's been fishing for tarpon in Virginia for well over 25 years, and he has caught exactly two. Is how rare they are in Virginia. So I'm just going to turn the mic over to you guys. You guys caught a Virginia tarpon. How the heck did you do it? What happened? I've got a million questions, but just talk me through the start of the day and what led up to seeing them and ultimately hooking one.
So not only was it Virginia tarpon, but it was in the bay too, not where they normally are. So it was a overcast day, so it wasn't that good for cobia fishing, but we were can hopping, a lot of cans, miles and miles of cans. Didn't see any fish, so we went to go do some other stuff, some like structure fishing, looking for anything because we had friends with us from out of town. And I think it was 1:00 or so. We had only caught one cobia. So I do what I do, and I turned the boat the other way, back where we came from, and I hammered down about 30 miles south. So just kept running, and sun had come out a little bit, and bait balls were up on top, and we got around, and all of a sudden, boom, it was schools of cobia up on top, so pods, and we were just whacking them along, and off of bait balls too, a bunch of bait balls in the area, just working this ledge. Then my buddy Kevin from Florida was like, look at the size of that bait ball over there, and I'm like, that's not bait, that's a giant school of cobia. And so I was excited. I'm like, awesome, giant school of cobia, you know what I mean? Because you could tell they were big. It wasn't like a bunch of the little ones.
Yeah.
And as we got closer, it was like, oh my God, like that's topping. And you could see them rolling. And I have a bunch of other videos and stuff that I won't post, but you could see them rolling and things like that. And so we kind of nudged up to them nice and slow, not to try to spook them. So there was actually 3 schools of them, which is crazy. So us, knowing enough about this fishery, just seeing them is magical in itself.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And we nudged up to them. They kind of like moved around, and we started throwing artificials at them. Even we had a crab on the boat, wouldn't even eat a crab. So it got to the point where we shut the boat off.
So you're saying they're just like cobias. They just don't eat.
Yeah. So we shut the boat off. And at one point, they were like up next to the boat,
around the motor.
Yeah, you could have jumped.
I tried the yellow lens trick to try and get good video of them, and I didn't.
Like we could have jumped off the transom and landed on top of them. They were that close to the boat.
Oh,
yeah. I have more minutes of just these school of tarpon not eating artificial or just geeked out, like we're freaking out the whole time. I just have probably 20 minutes of video of the.
You guys got to experience them for that long.
Oh yeah, and we threw everything at them. We had the boat off. We were just watching, like, I don't know what we're gonna do. And then
I have more video of that than the hooked up tarpon.
And then, like I said, there was 3 schools, and I was surprised by the variety of sizes. So some of them were smaller than I thought they'd be. They were like 3-footers, but then like the one we hooked, it was probably a 6-foot or whatever it was. There were some bigger ones in the mix, and it just, I would think kind of like cobia, as they migrate like with the same sizes and things like that. And you always hear the stories that the ones that do come up here are the bigger ones, right? So I was surprised to see some smaller ones in the mix. But sitting there in the tower just watching it, and I'm like, what are we gonna do? So I make.
You throwing everything in the book at them at this point. They just ignoring it. So, and you guys typically are artificial only. You said you had like one crab on the boat. What else did you have as an option?
So, and I know everybody wants to know what did it eat, right? So
a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I mean, come on, what was it? A Wawa sub?
An oatmeal
no.
bowl.
So while we were jigging for cobia, blind, we had bait balls and things like that. We end up snagging a bunker, and usually we just throw them overboard. But my friend Kevin is Kevin, and so he's like, "Give me that thing," and he threw it in the live well. And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll leave it for in case the cobia get stingy and they don't want to eat, we'll throw one at them so they can catch one," because we were trying to get them to cast at them themselves, and you know how that goes.
So you're saying that if you would have just been on the boat alone, that Menhaden would have not been in your live well?
No,
not at all.
This is the only time we've ever had a Menhaden in the live well.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Let alone crabs. Like
we had crabs for reds.
Reds earlier.
And just for like setting up the ridiculousness of the odds of this happening for the sake of the story, what's the time frame between when that Menhaden got tossed in the live well for the first time on the Canyon Bay ever and when you guys happened to roll up on these tarpon?
Oh, so like I said, I mean, I don't know when we snagged it. It probably been, I don't know, as we were running up. So like I said, we didn't catch a fish. Well, we had one fish in the boat at 1 o'clock, and I think we found these fish at 5. So we only had it. I mean, this is like 5:30 at night. We're sight casting at topping, right? Based on the video.
A couple hours.
Yeah, so probably a couple hours. The bait was in the boat. And my friends are from Florida. They've never seen a topping before until they come to the Chesapeake Bay.
They're bass.
They're green bass fishermen. So,
Got it.
And so we get out there and it's, we're just watching them. We hook the bait. I only had, eel type hooks in the boat. So I had 6-aught circle hook with a giant 8-inch bunker on it. And I actually called, and to actually figure that out, I called my buddy Dan in Florida because he's a topping guy. I'm like, will they eat this? And he's like, damn right they will. And so and it's funny because, you remember things afterwards. And the day before, he had said to us, don't fish for the ones you can see, fish for the ones you can't see. So like we were tossing the crab like at the ones that were rolling on top. So this time I pitched the bunker out like in front of him. And I remember from fishing in Florida with him that they like it, kind of just dead sticked out there. Oh. So they were moving to the left, and I just pitched out in front of them, opened the bail for a second, then I shut the bail, and maybe 10, 15 seconds, it starts screaming. And I'm like, there's no way. And so
yes.
I'm like, now what?
Yeah. Now what do we do?
Yeah. So it takes off. We're both in the towers. So I'm like, and it's screaming. It's on a 5,000 twin power. So, it's a cobia rod. It's a Terramar XX medium heavy. So I'm just like, hey, you're going to have to drive.
Yeah.
So it's peeling line. It jumped. And it jumped twice.
Oh. The first time he didn't.
Yeah, the first time I didn't bow to the king.
We were just like so excited to see it jump. I'm like, I got that on camera.
Oh. Yeah, so we haven't posted that video, but we have the whole hookup on video, the 2 jumps, everything. And it's like, so I finally get down out of the tower, get on the bow. We stop to pick up some line, and then we just stop, and it jumped one more time. We got it up next to the boat. It tail walked again and things like that. And, so we ended up, I didn't get to face grab it. Well, we got it up next to the boat. We leaded it. So per topping rules, it's a caught fish.
Yep.
And then at that point, I was like, all right, we're face grabbing it. I can't say what I really said, but. And then, so of course, then I'm starting to muscle it, and it went to go towards the motor. I went to go turn its head, and the line was over its back, and it kicked one more time and broke me off. But we had it to the boat. So, I mean, I still got topping slime on the boat from where it come across the side.
Yeah, never wash that off. Never, ever wash that off. It's probably got some magical properties. You'll catch every other fish you ever throw at, all that jazz.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things that, and it's funny because Kevin, my friend that was with us, he's really good friends with John Cox, the bass fisherman.
Okay.
And they were talking about tournament fishing, and he was telling me the story how John was like, when it's your time, it's your time. He's like, you can do no wrong. And I thought about it later on, because that was like the day before or 2 days before that. Mm-hmm. It's like I didn't bow twice. They were with us. We had the bait. Like sometimes it just all works out in your favor, and it's pretty magical when that works, right? Like when everything goes your way. Because a lot of times it doesn't. You know how it is. I mean, when everything worked out that day, from having the hooks in the boat, having the bait in the boat, and just having the right people with you to make it all, go down and happen. So so it's pretty cool.
You mentioned bow to the king a couple times, and I'm not educated into this. So is this like a legend of the tarpon that if you do hook up to one, you bow to it, or is this prior to hooking it?
and I learned this from doing it in Florida with Dan and Tony, is when they jump, you like bow the rod down to them so that they don't throw the hook and so they don't break you off. So they call it bowing to the king. So you'll see, well, when I finally post the video, you'll see that. And the second time I actually pushed the rod towards the fish, it's weird because it's like the total opposite of what you would think. You're always like, don't leave slack in the line, don't leave slack in the line. But when these things jump, it's not like you're giving it slack, but you're giving it a little bit of give. You're just pushing it towards it. So I did it twice out of the 4 times and it stayed on. So like something went my way that way. So
you were on the rod. So you were on the rod the whole time from hookup to leader. Yeah. How many tarpons in your life have you caught?
I think this is my 5th or 6th one.
Okay. So you had a little bit of an idea of how to finesse the fish. I was kind of hoping you were going to tell me it was your first and that you just magically did everything right.
No.
So it's been a good amount of time in Florida. And he got 2 on fly, which is awesome.
Yeah, my first time ever hooking a top, I was going to say Kobe, a topping was magical and nobody ever believed me. I went down with this guy in the Keys, this guy Drew, and it was like February, and I'm not a good fly fisherman, and we caught 2 that day. Oh, wow. And like nobody believed me. And he thought it was great. It was like bragging rights, because it's the same thing, right? Just like your uncle. You go fishing your entire life, you catch 2. At that time, I think I was in my 20s, maybe 30s. Mm-hmm. And I had never like fly fish for topping, and I hooked and landed 2. And it was like, so maybe I just got a good luck topping bug, I guess.
You definitely have something the tarpon like Dave Gill for some reason. So Shauna, how did you have the wherewithal? I mean, obviously you seem to be the person who has the camera ready to go, but like, were you shaking at all when this was happening?
So I mean, you in the video, I'm geeked out. All of us are cursing the whole time, so I do apologize for that. But we were just so excited. So I'm just excited to see these schools, and I was just videoing it when he's like, I can't tell which direction they're moving. I said they're moving to the left, like pitch it out front, and that's on the camera. Like I'm in the tower.
You say that,
yeah, and then it starts reeling, and I'm like, holy shit, now what? What do we do now?
Yeah.
And then the best part of it is we had our 2 friends, so I just give them my camera and I start driving and handling the boat. There would have been very little proof of that if it was just the 2 of us like we normally are. We never get anything because we're too busy yelling at each other or catching fish.
Well, I would like to submit the idea that folks that are, practicing sustainability the way you guys do, throwing artificials and not just, going around and harvesting nonstop, maybe the good Lord up above was like, hey, it's their turn for all the things to just go right,
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. And it's wild. So you talk about that this is our first year. We haven't so I think last year we kept 2. This year we didn't keep a single cobia.
So how you said you get seasick except for when you're in a tower?
Yep.
Dave's allergic to seafood. I mean, he eats it, but like he doesn't get along with it very well, and he'll sacrifice sometimes. But we don't harvest that many. We said we're into water, wastewater. We're big conservationists, environmentalists by and it's just nature. So it kind of all makes sense to us.
And you're talking like 200 plus cobia probably.
Yeah.
Is what we're averaging. Yeah.
And there's just 2 of us. We don't need that much fish to eat ourselves.
Right.
So, and usually if we want to eat it, like we just go get it. I mean, we're not the type to have a freezer full of fish or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Like, so like if we wanted to eat a cobia, you just go get it that day and then you grill it up and whatever. So, but this year, I mean, a lot of it too is like less than that is like, we don't have one of those cool killer docks. Like, I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to like clean the thing. You know what I mean? I get back mosquitoes and bugs.
Trash on our property. I don't want to have to go bring it to the dump.
I'm sure if Jay Williamson, the owner operator of Killer Dock, was listening to this and hearing how special, maybe he'll just like send one in the mail to you guys.
But yeah, no, I mean, we love it.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear the passion. And then, talk me through the moment when you get that beast upside the side of the boat. You guys obviously handled it properly, by not trying to drag it into the boat and hold it up for a picture or anything crazy like that.
Do that. No.
Size estimation, how big would you reckon the one that you guys landed was?
I would say it's, I mean, 80 to 100 pounds. I mean, it was probably 6 foot long. I mean, it depends. I mean, it's tough to tell. I mean, it was
a good sized tarpon. I've caught a couple medium tarpons. This was a real tarpon. This is a good tarpon. Mediums, they're good. They're fun to catch.
I mean, because you catch a big one, man, forget it. Like we did some night fishing in Boca and stuff like that, and we had some friends that I won't name them, but they were just like, the fish would hook up, they get the bite, and then it would throw the hook, and they're like, that was awesome. Like, like, yeah, I don't have to reel it in.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, but some of them ones down there, like I know our friends Dan and Tony, they've got some 150, like 200 pounds. Yeah, like giants, and it's fun one time.
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, we do a lot of fishing, we do a lot of running.
I mean, we had 3,000 hours on boats combined before this whole thing, or more than that, before this happened on the bay.
Yeah, just on the bay.
For perspective, right?
And we've only lived here. Well, we've only been fishing here since 16. So,
man, that's incredible. I mean, you would know if this happened to other people in the bay. So far as I know, this is one of the very few times that I've heard of tarpon being spotted in the bay, and everybody kind of has that story. It was September 2022. I took my boat offshore for the very first time, and I've just got this little 26-foot Mako, and I'm like, let me just go offshore. And my very first trip offshore, I get to see this giant, like 18-foot great white shark, and I'm like, man, that was really cool. I guess this is what you see when you go offshore. And like all my buddies, I'm texting like, we are offshore all the time. We've never seen a great white up and close in person like that. So, sometimes the fish gods smile on you. But for those that are listening, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I'm hoping it becomes more of a regular thing. I know that Captain Tom saw them all the way up by Hooper's Island up in Maryland, and then another captain I know, Dre, they saw them like down by the mouth of the Potomac and stuff like that. So I mean, and you hear more and more stories. I mean, I'm good with it. If this is the new Chesapeake Bay. I mean, and then some of the commercial watermen over there on the Eastern Shore and stuff. I know the one guy, he catches a few in his pound nets every year and stuff like that. So I mean, I think I don't know if it's more people are on the water and we're just seeing them more, or if they're more frequent of a visitor. But like I said, I'm good with it. If I'm about to buy a heavier rod and keep it on the boat.
You need a Bridget. You need a Bridget. It's what we call it during the heat of bridge season. I have a rod on board. It's the bridge rod. It's extra heavy line. We call her Bridget. So you got to have a Bridget on board. But I think you're onto something as far as like as all of us as recreational anglers begin to take our own kind of personal responsibility for the things that we can do to contribute to conservation, whether that's limiting our harvest or adjusting the size that we harvest, as different things maybe change in our ecosystem with the amount of bait that's going to be available or present in the bay. I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple of years. We're in our third year now of two cobia only, and only one over 50 inches. Yeah. So I was talking to Aaron, with Cobia Killer. He's going to be on our next segment, and he shared some similar thoughts as well, that it's exciting to see what the future of the bay is going to look like as we all start to work together and popularize some of the conservation ideals, that we can all do our little part, and it all adds up to epic stories like this. So
yeah,
I can't thank y'all enough for hopping on the show with us to share your experience and how special it was, and unveil the magical bait, the menhaden, that the tarpon finally ate.
So everyone wants to know, what did it eat? It's like, man, nothing special. Just we're just lucky to have one on the boat for once. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Dave and Shauna, thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I appreciate y'all taking a little break out of your evening to share the story.
Well, thanks for having us, and look forward to seeing you on the water maybe this weekend.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. If folks want to follow you guys' fishing adventures, what's the best way for them to find you on the social channels?
Instagram, I'm Striper Sniper, which I should probably change the top in something, but I won't. And then you can tell them.
I'm Bay Life Freezes.
Bay Life Freezes.
My social media manager. I'm not real good at it. I just like to enjoy the moment, which is why it's so crazy that we have so much video, because we had friends around, because normally we have none of it,
Yeah. So. Now you guys have a national Lower Chesapeake Bay treasure saved on your iPhones. I hope it's in like a cloud, a Cumulus, a Nimbus. I hope it's in all the clouds, Amazon Web Services, Azure. It better be
my
saved
cloud
everywhere.
Space just ran out. You're jinxing me, Luke. Now I gotta pay more money.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, guys, thank you again so much, folks that are listening. That's going to wrap up a really cool special segment. Let's stick around for a word from our sponsors that makes the show free for us each week, and we'll be right back with you real soon. It's time we talked about catching some serious savings. Imagine harnessing the power of the sun to cut your energy bills and having a roof that's built to last. Convert Solar and Roofing specializes in top-notch solar installations and durable roofing solutions that stand up to the toughest elements. Their solar panels are designed to maximize efficiency, and their roofs are built with premium materials to ensure long-lasting protection. Whether you're out on the water or at home, their expert team ensures you're covered. As fellow anglers in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, the team at Convert Solar and Roofing cares about both sustainable living and sustainable fishing. So reel in those savings today and visit www.convert-solar.com or call 757-44-SOLAR. Make your energy and roof as reliable as your favorite fishing lure. Call Convert Solar and Roofing today. All right, guys. Well, welcome to our third and final segment this week. We're going to be talking all things inshore fishing. Whether you're in the Lynnhaven Inlet, Little Creek, even up, the James, or over on the Eastern Shore, the inshore fishing this time of year, fall, gets really, really good. And it's been great the last couple of weeks. But I'm excited to have a new contributor on the show and get to know him a little bit and also talk about a few exciting things that are coming up. So welcome to the show, Aaron, a.k.a. the Cobia Killer. How you doing, brother, man? Welcome to the show.
Good, Luke. Thank you so much for having me, man. This is a cool opportunity to reach out to an audience who may not be used to hearing my voice or my take here in North Carolina. But yeah, the inshore stuff's fired up, and I'm excited to be here. We can talk about some cool stuff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, me too. I met you for the first time last year or maybe it was earlier this year when Oyster Cove Boat Works had their kind of expose down there, and you teamed up with the One Fish, Two Fish team and came in and did this really cool educational, kind of day. And then we also got to eat some of those delicious Wagyu burgers that your family has. Like, oh my God, they were the best burgers ever.
Yeah, that works out really well sometimes, doesn't it? You talk to some fishermen and they get hungry, then you feed them the burgers. So yeah, that worked out great. We had a good turnout and a lot of good information was spread that day. So that was awesome. I'm glad you were there.
It was really cool and great to meet you. So for those that are listening that have never heard, your voice or Cobia Killer before, just give us an idea about what kind of boat you run, where you operate out of, and some of the fishing that you guys specialize in with your charter business.
Right. So CobiaKiller.com is where you can find us. So you can find us on Instagram. Actually, we're Carolina Sunrise on Facebook. For whatever reasons, we can switch it up. But we have a 1950s 20-foot Alex Willis that I fish. It's a wood boat. Had it about 14 years, and it's got a tower and just a 115. But it's got a flat bottom and a tunnel, so we love shallow fishing. Then we fish out of Wanchese, North Carolina. So we fish primarily in the Sound, doing a lot of shallow water, speckled trout, red drum, some flounders for fun and just for a couple of weeks. We don't mess with those much anymore. But my boat is definitely designed for the shallow waters on the backside. And it was built in Harker's Island by Alex Willis in 1950, as I mentioned. Wow. And then when it's calm out front, we fish Hatteras late spring, and then fishing those big red drum sight casting those guys in Hatteras late April. And then the cobia show up and all that starts. So as long as the weather's good in the ocean, my boat's fine. We are looking at maybe a little larger vessel this year, but I'm going to keep my little boat because it's killer on the flats. We love throwing topwater plugs for trout. It's kind of our favorite thing to do. So that in a wrap, that's what we do.
It's funny you mentioned the topwater. I think of all the guys that we talk to, everyone comes back to just, how much they love a topwater bite. And I would definitely agree. It's probably one of the most fun and explosive things. And I'm looking at some photos of your boat, man. It's truly one of a kind. You don't get to see, a 1950s wood boat that often, but the thing looks absolutely killer. And one of the things that I love about old boats is, personal opinion, because I got a boat from the 80s, they're just built better, and it's like there was such a intentionality about the design back then. So I love that you're fishing an antique, so to speak. But let's dive into the trout and the red drum. It's been really good up here in like the Lynnhaven Basin and Little Creek. When it comes to inshore fishing, you've been doing it a long time. You're a subject matter expert. What are some of the things that you like to think about when it comes to getting located to target speckled trout and or red drum? And maybe talk us through some of the tackle and lures that you like to use when you're targeting them.
Well, I guess number one would be find some current. I'm a huge current guy.
Mm.
We got to have current, and temperatures not such a big deal this time of year. More in the springtime, I like to target the afternoon bite because the flats warm up with the sunshine. But this time of year, it's if you want to go moon phase, you can. A lot of guys like myself and you, I mean, I do charter fish about 6-7 months straight through the year, but in the off season, I choose to take some time off and work on my other gigs. Like, as you mentioned, I sell some of my dad's Wagyu beef in Virginia. That's wisecarverranch.com if you want to go that direction real quick. But this time of year, if you want to go moon phase, a guy like you and myself, Luke, we don't have all day to fish if I'm not charter fishing. So I will look at a moon phase chart. And if there's a best hour or 2 hours, I do try to pick that. But this time of year, I want to find some current and I want to find some bait.
So current-wise,
you don't have to have raging current, but you have to have some current for these speckled trout that I like to target. It may be in a back bay on a flooded tide, pushed way up back in the grass. It may be 3 foot of water with an oyster bed submerged that you know about. Incoming tide is a tide that I catch trout on many different versions, but it seems like an outgoing tide. If I'm in a trout spot that I love, I'm waiting for an outgoing and I'm waiting for a moon phase to coincide. If I'm going to take a buddy for 2 or 3 hours and expect, to catch some fish and then maybe find some big hungry ones.
Got it. So you're mentioning some things that I think most of us are a little bit familiar with, but for myself, as a novice, non, professional angler, when you say moon phase, I think, oh, it's a full moon. Oh, it's a crescent moon. And then there's all the other stuff in between, the wanings and the waxings and this, that, and the other. Is there a particular moon phase that you have found tends to produce the best activity or larger fish? Like, you've been doing this a long time. Just curious to jump inside the mind of an expert. How do you associate moon phase to what you actually see, at the end of the hook?
Sure. We could dive in as deep as you want to go, but I'll try to keep it simple. When I was stuck on the water the first 4 or 5 years of my career, I would realize in the middle of the day, about 12:30 in the afternoon, the trout bite would go berserk. And with trout fishing, it's typically early morning, late afternoon fish.
Right.
Well, I'm catching the mess out of these things. I'm like, what is going on? And all of a sudden, I started to pay attention on the ride home. The moon would pop up over the ocean. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I deer hunt a lot. And when you deer hunt and fish, it gives you a double whammy of paying attention to how critters move. So full moon, real quick, they feed at night about 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I'm sure you've had buddies go on a full moon and catch fish, especially speckled trout on a full moon, drum too. But what happens at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, their bellies are full. So they're not really going to chew when the sun comes up at 6 or 7. They take a rest and they come around about 10:30, 11. Their bellies start to get, okay, we got to feed fellas. And they will find a flat with glass minnows, shrimp, mullet, whatever. They're going to find somewhere to eat. And when they decide to eat, that's when you see those slicks pop up that smell like watermelon. And the birds start to pick, the white birds. They're called trout tern birds. And I call them trout birds. But when you see all that stuff happening midday and you're like, why is it so active? Typically, you're right before full moon, you're on one, or just after. But they really will decide to feed on a full day, on a midday kind of pattern, when most typically they're not. But I would say a new moon without any moonshine at all would be the best moon to target a big hungry fish during the day, because he doesn't have the same chance to feed at night with no lights on, per se.
Okay. So that's really good to know. And thinking about, going into this weekend, we're approaching a new moon, I believe, on like Sunday or Monday, and we've got like the very tail end of a moon going into Friday, Saturday. I'm using Hilton's real-time navigator right now to look at the moon phase coming up. So I think that would be a good thing, like leading into the weekend, for example. There's going to be less moonlight overnight, which means less opportunity for them to feed, which means a higher percentage chance of, seeing some activity during the day. Is that a fair deduction of
Absolutely.
Of data?
I love it. Absolutely, Luke. You nailed it. I'm a new moon kind of guy, but I'm forced again to be out there all the time. So I just adjust, just like Bruce Lee. Be like water, right?
Yep.
So I have a good friend of mine, Mike Dow from Alabama. He lives in Ohio now, but he's been with me for 10 years. He fishes 10 days in a row trying to break a world record cobia on a fly rod And
Oh, wow.
we're good buddies, and he taught me a whole lot. That's a whole nother thing. We can do that next time. But he chooses a new moon when he fishes with me. So if that tells you what kind of history this guy spent chasing record fish on a fly pole, he's he's in his age. He's in his 70s, I believe. And he acts like he's 20. But anyway, that new moon thing is we're getting lucky on that for this weekend. So that's going to be good.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny, you hear terminologies, and until you spend the time to become a student of the data, you don't really understand them. And I'm just going to be candid and throw myself under the bus. Whenever I heard new moon in the past, I thought that's probably a full moon. First throw at it, you're thinking, oh, that's probably a full moon. And it's the exact opposite of it. So every time I've heard somebody say, I like fishing a new moon, I'm like, why would they want to fish on a full moon? But now it makes more sense. The lights are off. Trout especially are very visual, hunters, feeders. So if they don't have that advantage to feed overnight, and then it's, sunrise, early morning, midday, and a, delicious looking paddle tail goes swimming by, they're probably going to be more inclined to eat it because they're not already stuffed. So current moon, I think that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Finish up.
Oh, just we were talking current moon. We've got some good indications, on what to be thinking about there. When we start to dive into presentation and tackle selection, what are some of your, kind of go-tos that you trust most to get a good bite?
Well, if I'm fishing for fun, which I have last few nights with my buddies, up in the right in the sound side, I'm waiting till late afternoon, last few hours of light, and I'm throwing top waters. I love a Zara Spook Junior. You just got, the big spooks have 3 hooks, and the Spook Juniors just have 2 treble hooks on the smaller bait. And the bone colored specifically I'm just kind of weird about that thing. It's like that vanilla looking bait.
Yeah. Yep. I'm familiar.
Bone color. That's for me, since I started fishing down here 20 some years ago. Once I started throwing top waters, I just was successful with it. And you know how it is with confidence in the lure. But that's top water on my day off, having fun, or if I have one client who just wants to go do that. We throw a lot of popping corks down in our shallow areas here as well, for speckled trout, and drum on the flats, the puppy drum. I do like Z-Man baits. I use a lot of Z-Mans, and I use a lot of no live bait needed. Those little paddle tails, hooked up with Jose in the past couple of years, and we're using a lot of his cobia baits. The swim baits are working really good up there in the bay.
Yeah, I've definitely seen them used a lot. I've used them myself. I would dare say that they sometimes seem to even be as productive, or even potentially more productive than jigs at times, just depending on what kind of mood the cobias are in that day.
Yeah, you want to swim that bait versus jig it, right? Because a jig is more of a crab in my mind, and a bait that they're throwing is more of like a fish.
Right. Yep. Makes a lot of sense. And then, so you mentioned the top water if you're having fun. I know from my experiences that's when I've typically seen some of my largest fish, is on a top water bite. But if I'm going to be fishing a jig, any specific, correlation you make between like current speed and weight of a jig head, and then maybe talk me through what kind of depths that you might like to target when you are fishing that type of a lure.
I don't like to throw more than a 1/4 ounce jig head. A 3/8 has got to be some like serious wind and serious current, just because I have found with speckled trout fishing without a cork, just the jig head, a 1/4 ounce falls at the correct rate that a bait wants to sink. If you've watched bait go in those shallows or even in deeper clear water, they don't shoot straight down. They'll shoot sideways, but they don't shoot straight down. So most jig heads that are overweighted, you're fishing, you're lifting up, but you're not paying attention to how quick that thing falls. And if most trout are eating baits as they fall. You lift up, you do the little double twitch, and then as it's falling, you'll feel the thump a lot of times.
Yeah.
I will throw as light as a jig head as I can get away with. So I'll throw a lot of 1/8 ounce jig heads when I'm throwing soft plastics, depending on the wind and current, but it's a 1/4 ounce or an 1/8 ounce for me. And you want to get into some more presentation for speckled trout in deeper water. If you want, kind of did the surface with the top water, popping corks with a 2-foot leader for the medium stuff right off the edge of the grass is what I love to target. with a popping cork. But if you want to go deeper in an 8 foot of water with current and there's fish around, we're going to fish the bottom with paddle tails. But also live croakers for me in the past 12 years have kind of changed my success as a charter fisherman. Mm-hmm. So if you're in 8 foot of water and you do have current and there's some trout around, maybe trying to target a big one, I would find a croaker, which you can catch on sabiki rigs at the dock. Just takes a little bit of time, maybe in a deep channel in 10 to 12 foot of water, you can catch a handful. But I like to lead with no less than 20, 25 croakers. And I'll hook the croaker with a 1/4 ounce jig head through his lips and toss him on the reef. And that, for some reason, in the summertime primarily, like end of May, June, July, August, September, and even October, it's really hard to beat that if you're in deep water and there's fish around.
That makes a lot of sense. And looking into the next couple of days, if I'm targeting speckled trout, how well do those same tools, tactics, and lures and baits translate to if I want to target the red drum, for example, or are we talking a totally different setup?
Well, I know in the Lynnhaven area, a lot of guys are going to be throwing paddle tails, soft plastics, but they're probably also throwing cut bait on an edge somewhere, cut mullet.
Mm-hmm.
Because where I'm from, when I live out here on the Outer Banks, when it's windy and we're trying to target drum, we're blessed with good weather because it keeps the current moving, and those are bottom feeders. So as long as the water's not too clear, we catch most of our drum down here when it's windy and blowing with current with cut bait, cut mullet.
Okay.
It's not the most exciting, but when it happens, it happens.
Yeah, and you like to use a circle hook or a J hook when you're doing that?
We do like to use like a number 7 gamakatsu, number 7 circle hook.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially with the way that the puppy drum's mouth is shaped and the way that they tend to eat and run away with it. You're going to get that nice, good hookup just off that circle hook. And I don't know about you, but I've rarely had a puppy drum come off of a circle hook once they're actually hooked. Yep,
as long as you don't jerk it out of the lips.
Right. It's not a J hook. That could be a hard thing to adjust if you've been cobia fishing all summer with these fish around here. And then, lastly, diving into flounder, what kind of things do you change up in your approach when you're looking to, come tight on a keeper flounder?
And I like to fish the shorelines, definitely a point, some type of sharp drop off with some oyster beds around. Some like Shelly, I like to call it broken bottom, but not a completely smooth bottom. Flounders like to get it hot around stuff, as structures, rocks, points. Yeah. But it's hard to beat that little 4-inch or 3-inch swimming mullet, the old Berkeley Gulp, man. The chartreuse one, that is a really hard bait to beat in my past 20 years fishing for flounder. I hate to admit it, but it'll outfish a mud minnow sometimes. It's weird.
It is so true. And, I've been a fan of those for a long time. More recently, I've transitioned and really enjoyed the Fish Bites Fight Club, which is similar, but they're not nearly as messy. They tend to hold up pretty good as well. So, either of those baits is a great choice for, flounder. I feel like you're like thinking, okay, they need a little scent. It's not just going to be a reaction bite. They also need to see it because they're sitting on the bottom looking up. And all those things kind of can come together. And then in terms of like your hook size for a flounder, obviously they got a totally different mouth shape and structure than a red drum or even a speckled trout. What size hook do you like to use on that jig for those flounders?
To be honest, man, I use the old school gotcha heads. Just because they have that really neat shape back, and it's not a big wide gap, it's a narrow gap hook.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm up there, sometime soon when we get together, I'll show you some cool stuff about how to keep the Z-Man bait on the jig head without it sliding down. Like all day long, you can fish it without it coming down, but I have to show it to you.
What's funny?
Small gotcha, 1/4 ounce for the key.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I've got a vivid seared into my memory, and I remember this from that Oyster Cove event that you spoke at. I remember you talking about that and then showing us that, and everyone in the room's eyes got real big, like shocked at how simple the solution was, how effective it was, and then you can kind of just see these looks like, why didn't I think of that? Because it's like when you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so simple, but it's so effective. But that's one of the things I remember recently. Lee Tippett was filleting a cobia next to me, and I was like, hey, why'd you do that? And he just looked over at me and chuckled. He goes, that's a charter special. And it was just the way that he was filleting the fish. He did this one stupid, simple little thing that just made it so much easier to clean the fish. And it's like, you guys that have been doing this as a profession for all these years, you just innovate so much, and it's always just a treat to get to, be a bystander in awe of like, wow, man, they really thought of that. That's incredible. All right, so
I'm not taking credit for there was a charter client of mine, and his granddad came up with it. Some old fishermen in Pennsylvania, in the hills of Pennsylvania, created that.
oh, that's awesome. Well, it's still, I mean, the fact that somebody created it just goes to show the ingenuity of it all. So
Absolutely.
we've talked through what would be affectionately referred to as like an inshore slam if you were to catch a speckled trout, a red drum, and a flounder. And that leads into the next part of the conversation here, which is you've got a close friend. One of the things I love about our fishing community, we've talked about Hooked on Hope on this channel. We talk about ways of giving back. We talk about sustainability practices. One of the things I admire about our fishing community, and it transcends from Virginia down to North Carolina where you are, is it's a tight-knit group of folks. And I think if you poke behind the curtain, you learn all sorts of stories of fishermen helping other fishermen and people out in the community. So I'd like to just kind of turn this over to you for a minute to just share a little bit about your friend, Jason Kramer, and his wife, Beth, and what's gone on in their lives and what you have done to, really help step up and pull the fishing community together to try to help them out. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Just share a little bit about what's been going on and what we have coming up this weekend that folks that are listening can come and be a part of.
Absolutely. So Jason Kramer is a good friend of mine. I've known him for, over 30 years. So I'm from Virginia Beach, and I went to high school in Cox High School right down the road from Long Bay Point Tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, he's been a good friend of mine for a long, long time. And Beth has recently entered our lives the last couple of years. We love her to death. And, I've had football experience. We wrestled with Jason. Our families have known each other forever. And just think of the world of them. It's hard to count your real good friends on your hands. And there's a saying, hard to have good friends. It's hard to get good friends. I'll take the ones I have. And I think that's so true because, you know what I mean? It's hard to have the good ones. Anyway, Jason and I go way back. And recently he had a hard thing go down with his family. He lost his daughter unexpectedly. And it was a tragic event for all of us, but especially for Jason. I can't imagine losing his daughter, my daughter. I have two. And it's tough to swallow when it comes to dealing with someone's emotions that you're not, when he calls, sometimes I'm not sure what to say and how to say it, but through good faith and good power and good friends, we can do anything. And I was called in a special way. Jason and I were speaking about how to take care of the cost and just dealing with, actually burying your daughter. And I'm like, well, man, there's got to be something. So we had a conversation on what we could do, and fishing tournament came up and speaking about it. So we were like, hey man, let's have a fishing tournament, try to raise some money for the cost that you unexpectedly had to come up with. And he's getting married this October. So
oh, wow.
A lot of his money that he was saving kind of got wrapped up. And I was like, man, we can do something for you. So I talked to some friends. And thanks to you, Luke, for putting it together. We're gonna have a tournament this weekend at Long Bay Point Tackle with Brady and the other guys over there. And we're really looking forward to being able to help him, but not only help Jason and his family, but also help families in the future that may be dealing with similar issues and with unexpected loss of the family, or dealing with any type of addiction, or just open up about family issues. It really kind of opens a broad kind of book for people with any type of issues, but especially family issues dealing with things like this that we'd like to help out in the future. So it's a great opportunity for not only myself to be able to help Jason, but I think Jason's excited to help people in the future, because when something like this happens, it's not over all of a sudden. You're having to deal with it day to day. And I think he's excited to have a way to give back, to keep his mind in a positive manner. So thanks to you again, Luke, for putting all this together. This Saturday, we're going to have a trout tournament, and you can go over some specifics because you are the man who helped put all this together for us.
Yeah, man.
But that's what we're doing in a nutshell, and we're really excited to help out.
Yeah, it's, in all things in life, things that are honorable, definitely rise to the top quickly. And, I cannot imagine the pain and the shock and the trauma that Jason and Beth have dealt with over the past couple of months since the unexpected loss of life in their family. And it's it's hard to go through things. It's impossible to go through things alone. And so my hat's off to you and the community that have risen up around them. And what I think is cool about this is that it's fall, the season's changed. Everyone's excited about the inshore fishing. So we're combining two things, raising money to help out an amazing family in need and participate in raising money for the Halo organization, which is the name of the organization that these funds will benefit. And it's basically helping others who have experienced a loss of life, that's associated with, any sort of drug overdose. And, when you have a loss of life at a young age, there's not all like the funeral insurance. There's so many logistics that you're not ready for. And it just takes a ton of money and energy to take care of that. So, Jason and Beth are doing an amazing thing to start raising money to help others that have gone through what they've gone through. But it's going to be Caitlin Inshore Slam Classic. I think next year we can expect this to adjust back to its original intent, which will be a cobia tournament. But it's going to be the main event is going to be a red drum event, and it's going to be a 2 fish aggregate weight of your two biggest red drum. Obviously, the slot sizes are in effect, so it's 18 to 26 inches for the red drum. And then separately, we'll have 3 different Calcutta categories for species. So there'll be a single largest red drum Calcutta, speckled trout, and flounder, and those will be, you can enter those at, I believe it is $100 or $200 levels in each of those 3 species category, or you could just pay the $500 and be in the main tournament for the 2 red drum stringer. Cool thing about this being an inshore slam, you can enter this tournament by boat, by kayak, by shore, by dock. It doesn't really matter where you are. I would encourage everybody listening, just go register just to have fun and have a chance to win something. I know, Aaron, you're going to be bringing some cool, hats and swag and things that people can either enter to win or possibly get raffled off. It's going to be a lot of fun just to come together as a community, hang out Friday night at Long Bay Point for the captain's meeting, fish all day Saturday, and then hang out by the scales as we begin to weigh those fish in. So obviously we'll drop the links to the registration and the information in the show notes here. If you want to look at Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle on Facebook, or look up Carolina Sunrise on Facebook, or Cobia Killer on Instagram, we're going to all be, blast posting all this information over the next couple days. And the goal here is first and foremost, to get together as a community and make a big dent in raising some money for those that have dealt with something like this. And then secondly, to have a bunch of fun together and catch a bunch of fish. Aaron, have I left anything out that's important that we need to share with those listening?
No, you're really good at this, Luke. That's why you have the podcast. You nailed it, buddy. And thanks to you for helping with the tournament. You have a great idea of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So thank you so much for listening to information, how people can get involved and how they can help out. And definitely looking forward to a good time and a beautiful forecast. So no reason not to come out if you have time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at Hilton's Real-Time Navigator right now. I've fast forwarded in time to Saturday. We're on the verge of a new moon, which is, primo conditions. I'm looking at the wind speeds. They're really light, like 5 to 10 out of the southeast. Virtually no chance of precipitation right now. So, I mean, it's a perfect day to be inshore and having some fun fishing together. There's no limit. You can enter as a 1-person team. You can enter as a, 10-person team if you're all on the same boat. So again, boat, kayak, John boat, shore from dock, get involved, check it out online, go to Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle. You'll find the event right there. It is the Caitlin Inshore Slam Classic Fishing Tournament. We're going to have some fun. After this, season's over, folks are going to be on vacation down the Outer Banks, or want to get down there and get on board with you to go, fish and chase some of these speckled trout or other species you offer. Remind folks listening what the best way to get up with you and book a trip is going to be.
CobiaKiller.com will get it done. All my info's there. You can email me or just call me direct. I'm always answering my phone. If I don't answer, I'm netting a fish and I'll call you back.
Perfect. And what's that number for folks to reach you with?
252-256-8083. It's Aaron.
Awesome. Aaron, thanks so much for the conversation and for what you're doing to help out Jason and Beth. Guys, that's going to wrap up a really cool inshore segment and brief coverage of this exciting opportunity to get involved this Saturday, September the 28th, for the Caitlin Inshore Slam Classic. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back with the What Did You Learn segment.
Air Medcare. Would your insurance cover an air ambulance in a medical emergency? The fact is, insurance often doesn't cover the full cost of medical flights, leaving you and your loved ones at financial risk. But with an Air Medcare network membership, you can focus on recovery and not on finances should the unexpected happen. Air Medcare takes care of everything with no costs for flights only when flown by one of our providers. Membership covers your full household and starts at $99 a year. Visit gdo.deals/airmedcare to enroll.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the What Did You Learn segment this week. Thinking about what Captain Bill said, with regards to the water being a little bit more, poor visibility in contrast to what you'd like to see when you're offshore, and just being ready to adjust and be a little bit more focused on exactly where you're putting your baits down and understanding that, hey, it might not be that, glamorous bite that you had the last time when it was crystal clear water. Just kind of a learning opportunity there for me was just to understand that if I'm seeing a little bit murkier water, that's probably what the fish are seeing as well too, and to, adjust my strategy and maybe also adjust my patience a little bit, knowing that, maybe those flounder or those sea bass aren't going to just come a running because they see it from, 20 or so feet away. Jumping into that, tarpon report with Dave and Shauna Gill, I'd say the learning moment from that was just to, always be ready for the unexpected. We talked about the Bridget rod, for those giant, cobias when they're on structure. I know my very last cobia fishing trip of the year pulled off a very nice fish on a buoy chain, and I wasn't prepared to act on what was happening. I didn't have the right line. I mean, I was fishing, I think, a rod that had 40-pound braid with a 60-pound leader. I just wasn't ready to encounter that buoy chain. And had I been more ready or been thinking about that being a possibility, I might have maybe gotten a chance to see how big that fish was. But it's definitely, an amazing story. I wanted to share it with you guys just because I saw their post and I was like, man, what an incredibly rare opportunity to encounter, tarpon rolling in the Chesapeake Bay. Like, we know they're there. We know they exist. It's just so rare to actually get to be the ones to see it. And for those guys, knowing how dedicated they are to fishing, how much time they invest in being out there, especially as recreational folks that just do it for the passion and the love of it. I was really excited to hear that they got to experience that. So really cool opportunity there. Definitely a great learning moment. Be ready for the unexpected. Always have that extra rod. Always have that extra, bag of tackle. Just be ready for the unknown because when it happens, you want to be able to capitalize on it. And then finally picked up a ton of great tips talking to Aaron Beatson with the Cobia Killer Carolina Sunrise. Definitely want to have him on more in the future to pick his brain as a true veteran of all things, inshore and nearshore. I was checking out his boat online. That's such a cool build. A truly wooden made boat is special. They just don't make them like that anymore. But picked up on a lot of cool things, about, learning more about the moon phase and how to pay attention to the right currents for what you're targeting. So definitely, I would say of all the things that I picked up, the moon was probably the biggest, just understanding what those different cycles are. A new moon, meaning that it's brand new. It hasn't gotten full yet. So overnight of that new moon, those fish aren't going to be having an advantage when it comes to feeding. And then, of course, the tournament this weekend, Caitlin's Inshore Slam. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am excited about this format. To get out there, that you can target your 2 red drum, and have a chance for the main event, as well as, the fattest possible 26-inch red drum that you can find for that, single fish Calcutta. Or if you happen to be, an expert in targeting big speckled trout or big flounder, there's virtually zero limitations on where you can go fishing, for these fish. So maybe you want to enter the tournament and just target that big flounder, go offshore early in the morning to a wreck and try to catch a big jumbo flounder, then come back in and get your 2 red drum or whatever your strategy is. One of the things I like about, any game or any challenge or tournament is just the strategy of it all. So this inshore slam tournament, provides an opportunity to get really strategic in how you're going to target, your day, and whether you're a kayak fisherman, a canoe, a ginu, a john boat, or, pier or from shore, you can get involved in this tournament and be part of, something great in our community, helping out a great family while also competing for some great prizes, and just to get together on a Saturday and have some fun with your buddies, and then go to the tackle shop afterwards there at Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle, and see some friends and shake some hands, meet some folks, and maybe get a chance to win some swag. So definitely, if you're listening, I'd encourage you to check it out. The event is called Cobia Killer Presents Caitlin's Inshore Slam Fishing Tournament. It's all over Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle's Facebook page. It's in our Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report group. Please get involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really stoked to see how the community shows up and how much fun we can have, and hopefully hand out some nice checks and cash for prizes. Guys, that's going to wrap up the show this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Y'all have some fun this weekend. We got some good weather ahead, and our thoughts and prayers are with everyone in the Panhandle right now as Hurricane Helene approaches. We pray that no one is injured, and that everyone has great insurance policies, and that the damages are as minimized as possible, and that everyone gets power restored as quickly as possible, etc. So again, our thoughts and prayers with you guys down there. Y'all be safe. Till next time, cheers. So that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.